The outer hatch of Borealis 7 screamed as it cycled open, letting in a blast of void cold air that turned breath to frost. Mira Voss stumbled through, her thermal suit torn at the shoulder, frost crusting her dark hair white. Behind her, the endless black of space pressed against the station's shields like a patient predator. She'd made it. Barely. Her shuttle had died 3 sectors back, life support failing. Fuel cells cracked from a meteor strike she'd been too exhausted to dodge properly. The emergency beacon had brought her here, to this forgotten outpost that clung to the edge of civilized space, like a barnacle on a dying ship. The airlock finished pressurizing. Mira's knees buckled, but she caught herself against the wall. Pride kept her upright when muscle failed. She'd walked through worse. She'd survived worse. But the cold had gotten into her bones this time, deeper than usual. And the shaking wouldn't stop. She forced her legs to move, one step, then another, down a narrow corridor lit by strips of pale blue emergency lighting. The station was small, maybe 20 permanent residents at most. A trading post and refueling stop for ships brave or desperate enough to take the outer routes. People like her. Doors lined the corridor, most sealed tight. She passed 3 before finding one marked with a simple painted symbol, open for trade. Her frost-numb fingers fumbled with the door chime. It buzzed once, harsh and loud in the quiet. Nothing. She tried again, leaning her forehead against the cold metal. The shaking was getting worse. Her vision blurred at the edges. The door opened suddenly, and she nearly fell forward. A man caught her elbow, steadying her with a firm grip that didn't hurt. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with close-cropped brown hair gone gray at the temples. His face was weathered, the kind of worn that came from years in harsh environments. But his eyes were sharp and clear. Easy, he said, voice low and calm. I've got you. Mira pulled back instinctively, finding her balance. I need. Her throat closed around the words. She tried again. I need shelter. My ship's dead. I can pay, or work. Or she stopped, hating what she was about to say, hating that she had to say it. Or anything else you want, she finished quietly. Just don't send me away. The man's expression didn't change. No hunger, no calculation, just a steady assessment. He looked past her down the corridor, checking for threats out of what seemed like habit, then stepped back and opened the door wider. Come inside, he said. No conditions. Mira hesitated. In her experience, nothing came without conditions. I mean it, he said, meeting her eyes. You're freezing and you need help. That's enough. She didn't have the strength to argue or the options to refuse. She stepped over the threshold into warmth that hit her like a physical thing. Her legs finally gave out. The man caught her before she hit the floor, his arms strong and sure. He guided her to a chair near a heating unit, then knelt to unlace her frost-stiffened boots. Don't, Mira said weakly. I can save your strength, he interrupted, not unkindly. I've seen cold exposure before. You push through it, you make it worse. He pulled off her boots with efficient, practiced movements, then draped a thermal blanket over her shoulders. The fabric was worn but clean, and it trapped her body heat immediately. I'm Torrin Blackwood, he said, standing. I run supplies and trade coordination for the station. You are Mira Voss, she managed. Independent hauler. Was, anyway. Torrin moved to a small heating unit and poured something into 2 metal cups. The smell of broth hit her, rich and savory, and her stomach clenched painfully. Drink this, he said, pressing a cup into her hands. Slowly, your core temperature's too low to handle food yet. She obeyed, wrapping her numb fingers around the cup's warmth. The broth was simple, protein and salt and heat, but it tasted like salvation. Torrin sat across from her, nursing his own cup, watching her with that same steady assessment. Not staring, not judging, just observing. What happened? He asked. Mira took another sip before answering. Meteor field in the Cashin drift. Thought I could navigate it, save fuel. I was wrong. You made it here alone? Didn't have much choice. He nodded once. A small gesture that somehow conveyed both understanding and respect. The drifts killed better pilots than most. You did well to survive it. Mira's throat tightened again, but this time not from cold. She wasn't used to acknowledgement without mockery attached. Wasn't used to someone looking at her survival as an accomplishment rather than dumb luck. I meant what I said, she told him, forcing the words out. About payment. I don't take charity, didn't offer charity, Torrance said. Offered shelter. There's a difference. Not to most people. I'm not most people. He set his cup down. You're exhausted, half frozen, and running on empty. Right now, the only thing you owe is rest. Tomorrow, if you want to talk work or payment, we'll talk. Tonight, you stay warm and you don't fall over. That's the deal. Mira studied him, trying to find the angle, the hidden price. She'd been trading and hauling in the outer sectors for 6 years, and she'd learned that everyone wanted something. But Torran's face showed nothing but practical concern, the expression of someone solving a problem in front of him. Why? She asked finally. Why what? Why help me? You don't know me. Torran was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. I've been where you are, he said eventually. Not the same situation, but close enough. Someone helped me when they didn't have to. I'm returning the favor forward. It was such a simple answer that Mira almost believed it. Her vision was starting to blur again, exhaustion finally overwhelming adrenaline. The warmth, the broth, the safety of 4 walls around her, it was all too much after weeks of cold ships and colder welcomes. There's a cot in the back room, Torran said, standing. Clean sheets, extra blankets. Washrooms to the left if you need it. Mira tried to rise, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. Torran offered his hand without comment. She took it, letting him pull her up. She started. Don't what? I don't want to owe you, she said, the honesty scraping her throat raw. I've owed people before. It never ends well. Torran's eyes softened, just slightly. Then don't owe me, he said. Just rest. He guided her to the back room, one hand hovering near her elbow in case she stumbled. The cot was exactly as he'd described, simple, clean, functional. A far cry from the luxury she'd once known, but a universe better than the cold shell of her dead shuttle. Mira sat heavily, every muscle screaming. Torran set a water bottle on the small table beside the cot. I'll be out front if you need anything, he said. Door stays unlocked. He left before she could respond, pulling the curtain closed behind him to give her privacy. Mira sat in the dim quiet, listening to the distant hum of the station's life support, feeling warmth slowly seep back into her bones. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt something loosen in her chest. Not safety. Not yet, but the possibility of it. She lay down, pulling the blanket over herself, and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she'd figure out what came next. Tomorrow, she'd find work, find a way to pay him back, find a way to leave before she got comfortable. But tonight, just for tonight, she let herself rest. Mira woke to the smell of coffee and the low hum of station activity filtering through the walls. For a disorienting moment, she didn't know where she was. Then memory returned in a rush. The cold, the desperation, Torran's steady hands and steadier voice. She sat up slowly, testing her body. The shaking had stopped. Her fingers moved without the sharp ache of frostbite. She'd survived another close call, and this time she'd landed somewhere that didn't immediately feel like a trap. The curtain was still drawn, giving her privacy. Someone had left a folded set of clothes on the table, simple station wear, clean and practical. Mira touched the fabric, feeling its warmth, then dressed quickly. Her old thermal suit was ruined, but these would do. When she emerged, Torran was at a small table, reviewing something on a datapad. He looked up as she entered, his expression neutral, but not unwelcoming. Coffee's hot, he said, gesturing to a thermal carafe. Food's in the warmer if you're hungry. Mira poured herself a cup, the bitter smell cutting through the last fog of sleep. She took a sip, felt the heat spread through her chest, then opened the warmer. Inside were protein bars and what looked like scrambled eggs with vegetables, real food, not ration packs or nutrient paste. She took a plate and sat across from him, suddenly aware of how long it had been since she'd eaten at a table with another person. How are you feeling? Torran asked, setting the datapad aside. Better, she admitted. Warmer. Good, your color's back. He paused. I checked on your shuttle last night. Pulled the diagnostics remotely. Mira's stomach tightened. And fuel cells are completely shot. Hull breach in 3 places. Life support's beyond repair without specialized parts. His tone was matter-of-fact, not cruel. I'm sorry. She's not flying again. Mira had known. But hearing it confirmed still felt like a punch to the gut. That shuttle had been hers for 4 years. Not much, but it had been freedom. How much to scrap her? She asked quietly. Enough for basic supplies. Maybe a week's worth of food and lodging, if you're careful. Torin watched her carefully. Not enough for passage off station. She set down her fork, appetite gone. Then I need work. I can help with that, he said. Station always needs maintenance crew. Cargo handlers, system techs if you've got the training. I can handle cargo, Mira said. Basic systems repair, navigation plotting, whatever pays. Torin nodded. There's a supply ship due in 3 days. They'll need help with inventory and distribution. I can put your name forward. Why? The question came out sharper than she intended. Why keep helping me? Torin leaned back, considering her with those steady eyes. Because you knocked on my door instead of breaking in. Because you're willing to work. And because, he paused, because I've seen what happens to people who fall through the cracks out here. I'd rather catch them before they disappear. Mira wanted to argue, to push back against the kindness she didn't know how to accept. But exhaustion and pragmatism won out. She needed this, needed him, at least for now. Thank you, she said, the words feeling strange in her mouth. Don't thank me yet, Torin said with a slight smile. Station work isn't easy. They finished breakfast in comfortable silence. Afterward, Torin stood and reached for his jacket. Come on, he said. I'll show you round. You should know the layout if you're staying. Mira followed him out into the corridor. In daylight, what passed for it on the Station Borealis 7 looked less ominous. The walls were clean, the lighting adequate. People passed them in the corridors, most offering Torin brief nods of recognition. Several stared at Mira. She recognized the look outsider, stranger, potential trouble. They always this friendly, she muttered. They're protective, Torin said. We're a small community. New faces make people nervous. And you're not nervous? He glanced at her. I trust what I can measure. You needed help. You asked for it honestly. That tells me what I need to know. They reached the central hub, a larger space with market stalls and small shops built into the walls. Vendors were setting up for the day, arranging goods on makeshift tables, food, tools, clothing, tech parts, everything a small station needed to survive. A woman at a fabric stall looked up as they passed. Her eyes narrowed when she saw Mira. Torin. She called out, her voice sharp. Who's your friend? This is Mira Voss, Torin said evenly. She'll be working station side for a while. Working. The woman's tone made it clear what she thought of that explanation. We don't need more mouths to feed. Good thing she's working. Then, Torin replied. His voice still calm, but with an edge underneath. Not feeding. The woman sniffed but turned back to her stall. Mira felt tension coil in her shoulders. Ignore Benna, Torin said quietly as they walked on. She's protective of supplies, sees every newcomer as competition. She's not wrong, Mira said. I am taking resources. You're also contributing, Torin countered. Don't let her make you feel like a burden. They continued the tour. Torin showed her the cargo bay, the maintenance corridors, the communal dining area. He introduced her to a few people, a mechanic named Joran who barely looked up from his work, a supply coordinator called Thesa who gave Mira a cautious but not unfriendly nod. By the time they returned to Torin's quarters, Mira's head was spinning with names and locations. It's a lot, Torin acknowledged, reading her expression. You'll learn the layout quickly. I usually do. Mira hesitated, then asked the question that had been building all morning. Where do I stay? I can't keep taking your cot. Torin was quiet for a moment. Station housing is limited. There's a waiting list for private quarters. Until something opens up. He met her eyes. You stay here. There's room. Mira's chest tightened. I can't, you can, he said simply. I'm not asking for anything. Just offering space until you've got your feet under you. People will talk, she said. People always talk. Torin shrugged. Let them. I know what this is, and so do you. That's what matters. Mira studied him, trying again to find the angle, the hidden price. But his expression remained open, honest. Why are you really doing this? She asked softly. Torin looked away, out the small window at the stars beyond. 5 years ago, I crashed on a mining colony. Busted up pretty bad. A woman named Sarah pulled me out of the wreck, patched me up, gave me a place to stay while I healed. He paused. I asked her the same question you're asking me, she said. Because we're all just trying to survive out here. Might as well help each other do it. What happened to her? Mira asked. She died 2 years later. Ship malfunction. His jaw tightened. I couldn't save her, but I can help the next person who needs it. The honesty in his voice hit Mira harder than she expected. She recognized the weight of survivor's guilt. She carried her own version. I won't be a burden, she said finally. I'll pull my weight, more than. I know you will. Torin turned back to her. But right now, your job is to rest and recover. Tomorrow, we'll start with the work. That evening, they shared another meal. This time, Mira helped prepare it, working alongside Torin in the small kitchen space. Their movements were tentative, at first navigating the unfamiliar territory of shared space, but gradually they found a rhythm. Torin chopped vegetables while Mira heated protein. They moved around each other with growing ease, and when their shoulders brushed, neither pulled away. Over dinner, they talked, careful at first, testing boundaries. How long have you been out here? Mira asked. On Borealis, 3 years. In the outer sectors, 10. That's a long time. It suits me. Torin said. I like the quiet, the simplicity. You don't miss the inner systems. His expression darkened slightly. Nothing to miss. No family left. No ties. Mira understood that too. Same, she said quietly. Their eyes met across the table. A moment of recognition passing between them, to people who'd learned to survive alone, suddenly sharing space. After dinner, Torin set up the cot again, but this time with more blankets, a better pillow, small comforts that spoke of consideration. Tomorrow, he said as she settled in, we start early. Supply inventory, it's tedious work, but it pays fair. I can handle tedious, Mira said. Torin nodded, then hesitated at the curtain. Mira, if you need anything at all, just ask. Why? The question came out softer this time, less defensive. Because you shouldn't have to need a reason to ask for help, he said simply. He left her alone then, and Mira lay in the darkness, feeling something shift inside her chest. Not quite trust yet, but the beginning of it. For the first time in years, she wasn't alone. And maybe, just maybe, that was okay. The supply ship arrived precisely on schedule, a mid-sized hauler called the Arcturus Dawn. Mira stood in the cargo bay beside Torin, watching through the observation window as the ship maneuvered into dock. Her hands were steady, her mind clear. 3 days of rest and regular meals had restored her strength. Ready? Torin asked. Ready, she confirmed. The cargo bay doors opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The Dawn's crew began offloading containers, food supplies, medical equipment, replacement parts for station systems. Mira moved immediately, checking manifest numbers against container labels. Her movements efficient and practiced. Torin worked beside her, his presence a steady anchor. They'd fallen into an easy partnership over the past few days, learning each other's rhythms. He was methodical, thorough. She was quick, adaptable. Together, they made a good team. Container 7 Alpha, Mira called out, scanning the label. Medical supplies, fragile contents, routing to med bay storage, Torin replied, updating his datapad. Thesis team will handle transport. They worked through the morning, sorting and cataloging. The Dawn's crew moved around them, professional but curious. Mira felt their glances, heard their whispered questions. New face on a small station always drew attention. By midday, they'd processed half the shipment. Torin called for a break, and they retreated to a quiet corner of the bay with ration packs and water. You're good at this, Torin observed, wiping sweat from his forehead. Better than most cargo handlers I've worked with. I've done it before, Mira said. Before I got my own shuttle, I worked freight runs in the Helios cluster. 3 years of loading, unloading, and trying not to get crushed by shifting containers. Why'd you leave? Mira took a long drink of water before answering. Met someone, a pilot named Darren Cole. He convinced me to pool our savings, buy a small hauler together. Said we'd run independent routes, make real money. Torrin's expression shifted slightly. What happened? We made it 6 months before he disappeared with the ship, all our credits. And the woman he'd been seeing on the side. Mira's voice was flat, matter of fact, left me stranded on a mining station with nothing but the clothes I was wearing. And about 3 days' worth of food money. I'm sorry, Torrin said quietly. Don't be. I learned a valuable lesson. Trust only yourself. She crushed the empty ration pack in her fist. Took me 2 years to save enough for another shuttle. That's the one that died in the drift. And now you're here, Torrin said. Now I'm here, she echoed. Starting over, again. Torrin was quiet for a moment, considering her. You know, he said carefully, trusting only yourself is a good way to survive. But it's a lonely way to live. Mira met his eyes. Speaking from experience? Always. He stood, offering his hand to help her up. Come on. We've got another half shipment to process. They returned to work. But Torrin's words stayed with Mira, circling her thoughts like debris caught in orbit. That evening, back in Torrin's quarters, Mira found herself restless. 3 days of sleeping on the cot, eating his food, occupying his space. The debt was piling up in her mind, and she didn't know how to balance it. I need to contribute more, she said abruptly. Torrin looked up from his datapad. You worked a full shift today. That's contribution. That's work I'm being paid for, Mira argued. I mean here, staying in your quarters, using your resources. Mira, Torrin interrupted gently. Stop keeping score. I can't, she admitted. I don't know how. He set down the datapad and gave her his full attention. Why not? Because every time I've stopped keeping score, I've ended up owing more than I could repay. Her voice was tight. Every time I've let my guard down, someone's taken advantage. I'm not Darren Cole. Torrin said quietly. And I'm not anyone else who hurt you. I know that, Mira said. Logically, I know that. But trust is hard, he finished. Especially when it's been broken before. She nodded, throat tight. Torrin stood and moved to the small kitchen area. You want to contribute? Fine, tomorrow. There's maintenance work in the lower tunnels. Environmental systems need checking. Power conduits need inspection. It's dirty work, and it's work I'd be doing alone. You help me, and we get it done twice as fast. That's your job, Mira said. I'd just be being useful. Torrin cut her off. And giving me company while we crawl through access tunnels. Trust me, that's contribution enough. Mira studied him, searching for any sign of manipulation or hidden agenda. She found none. Okay, she said finally. Tomorrow, we work the tunnels. The next morning, they descended into Borealis 7's maintenance level. The tunnels were narrow, lit by strips of yellow emergency lighting, and smelled of metal and recycled air. Torrin led the way, carrying a toolkit and scanner. Mira followed, her own scanner in hand. We're checking for leaks, power fluctuations, and structural stress, Torrin explained, his voice echoing slightly in the confined space. Station's old. Things fail without warning if we're not careful. They worked their way through the first section, Torrin showing her what to look for, how to read the scanner displays. Mira learned quickly, her mind latching onto the technical details. Here, Torrin said, stopping at a junction where multiple conduits met. Power flows uneven. Could be a damaged relay. They knelt together in the tight space, shoulders pressed close out of necessity. Torrin opened an access panel, revealing a tangle of wiring and circuit boards. Hold the light, he instructed. Mira angled her work light while Torrin's hands moved through the circuitry with practiced precision. His fingers were scarred small burns and cuts from years of maintenance work. You've been doing this a long time, she observed. Since I got here, he confirmed, not looking up. Before the supply coordination, I was just maintenance crew. Worked my way up. Why stay? Mira asked. A man with your skills could get better work in the inner systems. Torrin paused, his hands stilling. Because out here, I'm useful. In the inner systems, I was just another body, replaceable. Here, the work matters. And the isolation doesn't bother you? Used to, he admitted. Less so now. He didn't elaborate, but something in his tone made Mira's pulse quicken. She told herself it was just the close quarters, the warmth of the tunnels. They moved to the next section, working in companionable silence. The physical labor felt good, purposeful, and honest. No complicated politics, no hidden agendas. Just problems to solve and systems to maintain. Hours passed. They stopped for water breaks, sitting with their backs against the tunnel walls, legs stretched out in front of them. "Can I ask you something?" Mira said during one break. "Sure. Why haven't you asked about my past? Most people want to know why someone ends up out here." Torin took a long drink before answering. "Because your past is your business. You'll tell me what you want, when you want. Until then, I'm more interested in who you are now." The simple honesty of it struck Mira like a physical blow. She'd spent so long being defined by her mistakes, her failures, her history. The idea that someone might see her as just herself was almost incomprehensible. "I don't know who I am now," she said quietly. "Then we'll figure it out," Torin replied. Together, that word together hung in the air between them, weighted with possibility. They returned to work, but something had shifted. When their hands brushed reaching for the same tool, neither pulled away immediately. When they maneuvered through tight spaces, the contact felt less accidental and more deliberate. In the late afternoon, they reached a particularly cramped section where a coolant line had developed a slow leak. Water pooled on the floor, and the air was humid and warm. "We need to seal this before it gets worse," Torin said, already pulling out repair supplies. The space was barely large enough for one person, let alone two. They pressed together, working in tandem. Mira held the damaged section steady while Torin applied the sealant compound. His breath warm against her neck. "Almost got it," he murmured. Mira was acutely aware of everywhere their bodies touched shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip. Her heart was beating faster than the work warranted. "There," Torin said finally, sitting back as much as the space allowed. "That should hold." They should have moved apart, should have created distance. Neither did. "Mira," Torin said, his voice low. She turned her head, found his face inches from hers. In the dim yellow light, his eyes were dark, intense. "I need to tell you something," he continued, "and I need you to know there's no pressure attached to it." "Okay," she breathed. "I like having you here," he said. "Not just because you're useful, not just because I'm helping you. I like your company. I like talking to you. He paused. "I like you." Mira's breath caught. Every instinct screamed at her to deflect, to retreat, to protect herself. Instead, she said, "I like you too." The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. Torin's expression softened. "We don't have to do anything about it," he said. "I just wanted you to know. So there's honesty between us. I appreciate that," Mira said. Then, before she could talk herself out of it, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was brief, tentative, testing. When she pulled back, Torin's eyes had widened slightly. "Or we could do something about it," Mira said, her voice shakier than she'd like. A slow smile spread across Torin's face. "Yeah," he said. "We could do that." They kissed again, longer this time, less tentative. His hand came up to cup her face, gentle.